Welcome back to our channel, where we uncover timeless truths that inspire, challenge, and transform lives. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and revolutionary teachings ever spoken, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. This isn't just a sermon, it's a blueprint for living a life aligned with God's kingdom. These words, spoken over 2,000 years ago, were radical then, and they are just as radical now. For generations, the Jewish people had been crying out for a Messiah, someone who would rise up as a king, overthrow their oppressors, and restore their earthly kingdom. God had been silent for over 400 years, no prophet, no judge. Then suddenly arose the name Jesus of Nazareth. Fame of his miracles, power, and teaching spread throughout the whole region. Everywhere he went, crowds followed him, here and to be healed. And so it was on this day that he gave the most important teaching that will change the course of human history. The crowd that gathered before him was diverse: fishermen, farmers, beggars, and soldiers, all weary from the struggles of life under Roman oppression. But what they heard that day was not the voice of a military conqueror. It was something far more radical. This rabbi, Jesus of Nazareth, did not preach about swords, power, or rebellion. He spoke of a kingdom unlike any they had imagined, one not built on wealth or war, but on humility, mercy, and love. His words turned their understanding of the world upside down. The poor would inherit the kingdom, the meek would possess the earth, and the persecuted would be called blessed. It was revolutionary because it challenged not just Rome, but the very hearts of those listening. Jesus wasn't calling them to an external revolution. He was calling them to an internal one. The Sermon on the Mount would become the foundation of his message, a manifesto for a new way of life, one that still speaks to us today, piercing through the noise of ambition, conflict, and self-interest. What does it mean to truly live as citizens of this kingdom? Let's journey back to that hillside, uncover the depth of his words in their original language, and discover how the Beatitudes can transform our lives in ways we never imagined. Please take a minute to like and subscribe to our channel as we begin the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. In Aramaic, Jesus said, Tawayhun lemiskene bruch. The word miskeni doesn't refer to material poverty, but to spiritual humility, acknowledging that we are utterly dependent on God. To be poor in spirit is to empty ourselves of pride and self-reliance, to admit that we are insufficient on our own. This is not weakness, but strength, for in recognizing our need for God, we unlock the riches of his kingdom. In today's world, where self-sufficiency is celebrated and vulnerability often dismissed, this beatitude challenges us to strip away the facades. It calls us to embrace humility, knowing that only those who let go of their ego can truly receive the fullness of God's blessings. Are you willing to set aside your pride and open your heart to the wealth of heaven? Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. In Aramaic, tawayhon lakabline speaks of a deep, active sorrow, a mourning that goes beyond personal loss. This is the grief of a soul burdened by sin, by the brokenness of the world, and by the pain of others. Mourning here is not despair. It is an acknowledgement of the gap between what is and what should be, a cry for God to intervene. We live in a time where sorrow is often hidden, masked by busy schedules or numbed by distractions. Yet Jesus promises divine comfort for those who dare to face their pain and bring it to him. Whether it is the loss of a loved one, the sting of injustice, or the weight of your own failures, God stands ready to embrace you, to wipe away your tears, and to fill you with a hope that transcends the pain. Will you allow yourself to mourn so that you can truly be comforted? Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. In Aramaic, tawehun lamahike speaks of a gentleness that stems from strength under control. Meekness is not about being passive or weak. It is about having the power to assert, but choosing instead to trust in God's timing and plan. The meek are those who yield their own will to God's, knowing that true authority comes from him. In a world that glorifies aggression and self-promotion, this beatitude turns our understanding of power upside down. The meek do not fight for their inheritance. They receive it as a gift from the one who owns all things. Imagine a life where you no longer have to strive or compete for recognition, where your quiet confidence in God's provision allows you to rest in His promises. Are you willing to trust in His strength over your own? Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. In Aramaic, Tawaihun Lakafnine, Wutsichain Lakanuta, conveys an intense craving for justice and alignment with God's will. This is not a casual desire, it is a desperation, like that of a starving man longing for food or a parched traveler seeking water. This hunger goes beyond personal morality to a longing for the world to reflect God's character, justice, mercy, and truth. Today we see injustice all around us, corruption in leadership, oppression of the weak, and moral decay in society. This beatitude challenges us to refuse complacency and to actively pursue God's righteousness in our lives and communities. And Jesus promises that this hunger will not go unsatisfied. He will fill us with His presence, His power, and His purpose. What are you hungering for today? Is it something temporary, or is it the eternal satisfaction found in God's righteousness? Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. In Aramaic, Tawaihun Larakaman describes a deep, heartfelt compassion that mirrors the mercy of God. Mercy is more than forgiveness. It is empathy in action, a willingness to enter into someone else's pain and offer relief. It is an invitation to lay aside judgment and extend grace to those who least deserve it. In our culture, where grudges are nurtured and vengeance is glorified, showing mercy is an act of rebellion against the world's norms. But Jesus reminds us that the mercy we give is the mercy we receive. When we forgive, we free not only the other person but ourselves. Who in your life needs your mercy today? What would it look like to reflect God's heart in your relationships? Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. In Aramaic, Tawaihun Labardaliba speaks of a heart that is undivided, free from hypocrisy, and focused entirely on God. Purity here is not just about avoiding sin, but about having a single-minded devotion to the Creator. We live in an age of distraction, where our hearts are pulled in 1,000 directions, career ambitions, social pressures, and endless streams of information. Yet Jesus calls us to clear the clutter and fix our eyes on Him. Only then can we truly see God, in our lives, in others, and in the world around us. What is clouding your vision today? How can you begin to purify your heart and draw closer to Him? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. In Aramaic, Tawaihun Lavdei Shlama describes those who actively build peace, not just by avoiding conflict, but by reconciling broken relationships and fostering harmony. Peacemakers reflect the very heart of God, who sent His Son to reconcile humanity to Himself. In a divided world, peacemaking requires courage. It means standing in the gap, risking misunderstanding, and choosing love over hate. But the reward is great. To be called a child of God is to share in His mission and His identity. Where in your life can you bring peace? How can you become an agent of reconciliation today? Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. In Aramaic, Tawaihun Ladalain Madfin, Metul Kanuta, speaks to the reality of suffering for standing firm in God's truth. Persecution is not a sign of failure, but of faithfulness. It connects us with the prophets, with the apostles, and with Jesus Himself. Today, standing for righteousness may cost you friendships, opportunities, or even your reputation. But Jesus promises that the kingdom of heaven belongs to those who endure. Will you stand firm in your convictions, knowing that the temporary trials of this world are nothing compared to the glory that awaits? The Beatitudes are not just a set of ideals, they are an invitation to a transformed life. Each one challenges us to step deeper into God's kingdom, to live with purpose, humility, and love. These are the marks of a life that reflects the heart of God. Will you accept this invitation? Will you allow the Beatitudes to shape your heart and your actions today? If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe, and let's bring the light of Jesus' teachings to a world that desperately needs it.